Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Overwatch In Depth. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Soldier 76, who is one of the most well-rounded characters in the entire game. This is my very first hero review, so I'm going to focus on the stats today primarily. Soldier 76 doesn't have that much in-game testing or crazy things going on about him, but other episodes will have much more of that. I would appreciate any feedback that you have down there in the description below on what you think about the episode, what you'd like to see more or less of in the future. But let's jump to good old Soldier 76, and the first thing we want to talk about is his pulse rifle or primary fire damage. It'll deal 17 damage per shot up close, decreasing down to 5 damage at a distance, which is a pretty colossal drop, and like most other characters in the game, headshots will deal double damage or 2x whatever that base damage is, so that could be up to 34 or 10 damage respectively. The damage drop-off ranges start at 35 meters and it'll decrease down to its minimum at 50 meters, so you get a maximum damage range up to 35 meters, which is very, very good, and it has a fairly sharp decline into near uselessness at very long ranges. Rate of fire is 600 rounds per minute, which is very fast for Overwatch. For other games, Call of Duty, which I'll be referencing quite a lot here in this episode, that would be slower, but for Overwatch, that is a very high fire rate weapon. The pulse rifle can be reloaded in exactly 1 second. It can't be sprint canceled like Call of Duty. That's something that I instinctively try to do because I've played COD for so long. However, you can take 100 milliseconds off of it if you do a melee cancel. Is that worth it? Considering the fact that you have to time it perfectly, and I can't time it perfectly in the middle of combat, I'm going to say no. But some people really do like to max min and, really work on their characters, and it could be worth it for you. Overall, the primary pulse rifle fire is an extremely useful weapon. We're going to talk about the accuracy properties later, but it pretty much pumps out damage over range, and you have infinite ammo and a quick reload, and it gives you a very, very high, consistent, sustainable damage. So anytime you see Soldier 76, he can be putting damage on you. It can also fire Helix rockets with his secondary fire. They fire in a fairly tight spiraling cone that's not a very wide projectile at all, and the Helix rocket damage will deal 120 on impact, or in the center of the blast radius. It's the same if you hit somebody or if they're in the blast radius, but the blast radius is very, very tiny at only 2 meters, so it's not very far. You either need to hit them in the body or hit relatively close to them to get any sort of reasonable damage out of this. However, it is on an 8-second cooldown, which is a very low cooldown for such a high damage ability, making it very, very spammable. This gives Soldier 76 an overall very high damage per second of approximately 185 damage per second, and that does not factor in headshots. That does factor in the Helix rocket damage cooldown and the base rate of fire. 185 DPS is very, very good. He can pretty much nuke squishy targets, especially if you're getting headshots or just one of those Helix missiles on point, and I feel that's probably what he's best at, is just crushing squishies. And a few of the slower, heavier tanks like Roadhog, he's also very, very good at wearing down at long ranges. One thing you should keep in mind with Soldier 76 is that the pulse rifle has perfect accuracy for the first 3 shots. And I mean absolutely dead on, bang on, 100% perfect accuracy, as if it were just a laser beam. First 3 shots are perfectly accurate. Shots number 4 and 5 are also very accurate. They are not perfectly accurate, but they are very, very precise. After shots number 4 and 5, the crosshairs tend to get wider, it gets less accurate, and it's much less useful at long ranges. So my recommendation to you is, if you have the skill, I would pretty much always burst it in rounds of 4 to 5 and resist the temptation to spray unless you're relatively close to the enemies. This is kind of one of those things where it's do as I say do and not do as I do, because I'm very, very used to spraying, and Soldier 76 is a very spammy character with his weapons, so I do have a tendency to hold down the trigger, or not playing on PC, hold down the mouse button. I'm so used to playing trigger here. Hold down the mouse and just go full auto when I really shouldn't be doing that. I should be burst firing it. But it is really awesome to have that accuracy. That allows you to get headshots at super long ranges and pick off squishy targets at very, very long ranges. A very overlooked aspect of Soldier 76 is that you have unlimited sprint if you hit the shift key, which is nice. It's also significantly faster than you think, so you can sprint to your objective to defend it, or sprint to the objective or to the payload or to the hill to move it forward or contest or whatever it is that you want to do. But it's also very useful for escaping. It's just very, very fast. Very few characters can keep up with him. He's running pretty much as fast as Lucio does with his regular sound boost. And what you can do is if you're engaging a Genji or a Mei or somebody that can just really kind of pull you in, you can actually out-sprint them. If you just feel that you're going to lose a gunfight, if you're low on health, you can just sprint and duck around corners, and very few of the characters in the game will be able to catch up with you without Lucio helping them out. So you can just run away and heal yourself with your Biotic shield or find some health or something like that. Do not underestimate the value of the sprint in either getting to the objective or escaping enemies. Speaking of the Biotic field, this is a very interesting ability. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. It heals you at 40 hit points per second, and the duration is 5 seconds, which means it's going to heal you for a total of 200 health. And coincidentally, Soldier has exactly 200 health, so every time you drop the Biotic field, you basically get one full health regen out of it, and of course it'll heal you as you take damage on top of it. Do keep in mind the Biotic field can heal your teammates as well, which makes it incredibly useful, and if you have very good coordination and if you drop it in the right points, you can almost use Soldier 76 as a secondary healer. 200 HP isn't going to help the tanks a ton. It's not insignificant though, but it will help a lot of your squishier teammates survive incoming damage. Of note, the heal radius is 5 meters, so that is much bigger than the Helix rockets, and that's a radius, so it would be a 10-meter diameter all the way across. Pretty big radius. It's about the size of most of the wider doors in the game, or maybe some of the smaller hills, and it's very, very good for throwing down. Cooldown's a little bit on the slow side though. It takes 15 seconds to cool down, so this is definitely not a spammable ability. You need to throw it down and make it count. Some of my favorite things to do with the ability is to throw it down in a choke point so that my teammates run over it and heal as they're taking damage as they run across. I like to throw it down at a corner so I can corner check and peek people and heal as I'm taking damage. I do this to Bastions and other Soldier 76s very often. Of note, the Biotic field technically counts as a projectile, so in very rare circumstances, if you're point blank with Genji, he can actually reflect your Biotic field and begin healing himself, and D.Va can dissolve it. However, it deploys very, very quickly, and you need to be very, very close range for this to happen. But in case it does happen, I just thought you should know about it. In more desperate situations, you can use the Biotic field to straight up out-heal relatively low DPS enemies such as Tracer, D.Va, and Mei. Tracer typically is going to do strafe runs on you, and depending on their skill level, especially a lot of the ones I play with are lower skill, they don't hit that many of their shots, and they kind of depend on weakening you over time and then backing up in time themselves to heal. However, if you throw down a healing pod, their strafe runs are significantly less useful, and you can basically out-heal them. D.Va at long ranges, you can out-heal very easily. She's pretty nasty up close, but medium to long range easily. And Mei is very, very annoying. She counters Soldier very, very hard, and she wants to run in and freeze you and then headshot you. Oftentimes, though, if you're able to drop a Biotic field before you're frozen, you can get enough health back to survive that initial headshot, and sometimes you can turn the battle to your favor against Mei. So Soldier 76 also has an ultimate ability that we're going to be talking about today. All the characters do, of course. It gives you perfect auto aim for 6 seconds. It highlights all the targets in your field of vision, and it has a little countdown timer so you can see the circle counting down, and it'll let you know which one you're locked onto, and it is a perfect auto aim so that you don't miss any of your shots. Of note, though, it does not get any headshots. These are not perfect auto-aim headshots. These are just chunking, people in the body. But given the fact that you're not going to miss, it's definitely worth doing instead of going for the headshots. However, shields can disrupt your aim. You can't lock onto targets behind a Reinhardt shield. You cannot lock onto Torbjorn's turrets. You can lock onto Bastion, thank goodness. But also Winston's big shields will disrupt it, and Zarya's shields will negate the majority of the damage. It's a really cool ultimate. It allows you to reload faster as well, so that your downtime on shooting is very, very minimal. It cuts the reload time essentially in half. So during this ultimate, you're able to almost always constantly shoot very high DPS auto-aim shots. Extremely effective. It's very good on offense and defense and rushing, and it kind of really rounds the character out to have such an awesome and powerful ultimate. However, Soldier's ultimate can be countered by several other characters' normal abilities. Genji can, of course, reflect the ultimate damage right back into your face, so do not lock onto Genji with the ultimate. Any kind of shield, again, will disrupt it. The Ice Wall from Mei is one that I found to be the most fun, because I play a lot of Mei. Typically, Soldier 76 is going to activate the ability from behind cover and then sprint in. If you know where he is, you can block him from even coming into the engagement or throw an Ice Wall up in the face and kind of waste his time. Very, very effective. And the bullets can also be absorbed by D.Va's like projectile deflection weird block mechanic, which is it's interesting, but it's not as reliable as the others. Overall, I think Soldier 76 is a simple character that is very easy to perform well with. He was designed pretty much to be an introduction to Overwatch for those of you that are unfamiliar with the game, or for those of you that play a lot of Call of Duty or Battlefield or traditional shooters. He is the traditional shooter. He is Mr. Call of Duty. He is the easiest one to identify with, the most human, the least crazy abilities, and he's very easy to come in and pick up and play. A lot of people say this makes him weak or boring or a bad character. I actually disagree. I think Soldier 76 is one of the best characters because he lacks specialization. He's a very general, well-rounded character, and his lack of specialization can be a good thing because he complements almost any team composition. He's very good on offense. He is good on defense. He synergizes with a variety of tanks and healers and other DPS characters. There's almost no team that is going to poo on you for using Soldier 76 because he fits really, really well with every composition, and I think that's really his strength. However, I do think that he's best used for offense, though. I don't think he's quite as good on defense because defense doesn't make as much use of the sprint ability. Offense, you can sprint to the point really fast, and he kind of pops people at long ranges. Static defenders like Bastion and Torbjorn turrets and stuff like that have a hard time. So I think he's definitely better on offense, but he is good on defense. Soldier 76 is strong against, or counters if those are the words you want to use, against Bastion, Pharah, Roadhog, and Mercy. Now, if you get online and you look up some guides, they're going to very greatly disagree with me on most of these, but I think he's a very good Bastion counter because he can hit Bastion very accurately, get some shots in at long range, throw out that 120 damage Helix missile, heal himself from around the corner, and come back out before Bastion can heal himself. Now, this is only bearing in mind that Bastion doesn't have a giant Reinhardt shield in front of him, which can be very bad. Pharah, he's one of the few characters that has the range to properly pick her out of the sky. He can DPS Pharah when she's hovering over everybody. Pharah does a ton of damage to Soldier if she engages on him with the rockets. Roadhog's a big, fat, slow target, and as long as you stay out of his hook range, you ought to be able to just completely wear him down at long range. And again, because of the range, he can hit relatively mobile healers like Mercy. However, Soldier 76 is very weak against Reinhardt, Winston, and Mei. Reinhardt has a giant shield that blocks 2,000 damage, pretty much all of his bullets and everything. You can pump mag after mag after mag and not break that shield, so there's not a whole lot you can do against Reinhardt's shield, and if you get really close to Reinhardt, he can beat you down with the hammer and crush you before you can do nearly enough damage to kill him. Similar story with Winston. Winston can block with the shield, but Winston can also kind of harass Soldier 76 and constantly keep the Tesla cannon on him, or his electricity gun, and just cook him before Soldier 76 can even hope to deal enough damage to kill Winston. And finally, Mei, who is a counter to a variety of characters. Mei has the health to face check Soldier 76 and freeze him almost every single time before he can do enough damage to kill her. And Mei kind of trolls you. You're gonna say, oh, there's Mei, I'm gonna blast her with the rockets and I can totally get her enough damage on her to kill her before she freezes me, and then you're frozen and you're dead and there's nowhere to go. If you see Mei, Winston, or Reinhardt, you should definitely run away and not be engaging on these characters. Guys, that's all for this episode of Overwatch In Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful, and I hope you give Soldier 76 a try. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.
Enough waiting around. Let's get out there.